What's up, FloGrappling fans? Ricardo Amendolia here for another edition of the Baleia's Breakdown Show. And once again, I want to thank you, everyone, for watching, all the positive feedback, even some of the negative feedback. I don't mind. Give me some feedback. Let me know that you're watching. Tell me who you want to see. Give me some questions. Let's stay interactive here, and I will do my best to service you guys out there in the jiu-jitsu world. Now, I've since I started this show, I had a list of guys that I really wanted to have on the show, and probably one of the guys that I've been just itching to get here. I've been asking for quite some time. We just couldn't make it happen, but we finally got one of the greatest submission grapplers, one of the GOATs, the people's champion, the people's greatest of all time. Of course, I'm talking about Marcelo Garcia is on the Baleia's Breakdown. Finally, Marcelo, we made it happen.
I'm so excited, Baleia. I don't know if people know about. I'm a good friend of Baleia, and I have a really special love for him. We know each other since I was like probably my first year of a black belt. Since the first time that I went to Canada, so it just bring a good memory, Baleia, to be around you and be able to talk to you.
Oh man, thank you so much. Thank you for the kind words. And yeah, I'm trying not to boast and trying not to brag too much, but we've known each other a long time. I actually found an old picture when I first met you in Brazil in 2004 at the World Championship, and I posted it on my Instagram today. And that was a very special year for me because it was my first year in Brazil. First time I ever got to, even meet some of these guys or train with Fábio Gurgel. And I got to see you and Terere and all these other guys compete at the World Championship. And, when I think about that World Championship, that was your first year winning Black Belt World. So obviously it must have been a special time for you. The question that I've always wanted to ask you was, during that time, obviously the alliance a few years before that had a big setback with some of the guys leaving, starting their own team, and you were one of the only black belts on the alliance flag at that time. I know Tarsus and Salusa were still coming up. I mean, now when I really think of the history, did you feel the pressure, kind of like the weight of the team, kind of going into this tournament? Because you never showed the pressure, you never show pressure, you never show emotion when you compete. You're very cerebral. But what was it like competing in that era specifically before the alliance could kind of regrouped and grew back up to what it once was?
Baleia, it's good to you remind us that because I always have felt all the pressure. I always felt every little inch of pressure from that time. And reality is not just the pressure from the whole situation, from the whole breakout of the alliance. What is huge? It's huge when a big team kind of break up complete how it was, you know what I mean? But it's about like I was too young, ballet. It was hard. It was hard to do. But I'm complaining about I was young to deal with that much pressure, but at the same time, I can reaffirm that never compromise like my performance on the mat. I don't know if I've been clear of that. I felt all the pressure was really hard the nights, the day, the before, but then when I was competing, I never felt any pressure. You know what I mean? I never bothered me, never interfere to the result, to the results from the match that I won, and to the result from the match that I win. But it was a lot of pressure to compete against like well-known black belts in 2004 when I was 21, 22 years old. Was a lot of pressure.
Yeah, like I said, it was a special year for me. Seeing you compete for the first time live was insane. That was a big, a very, very historical event. And when we talk about historical, we talk about history. I think the thing that a lot of people, maybe the younger generation, don't realize is how much you actually changed the no-gi game in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu due to your ADCC accomplishments. I'm not talking specifically just about the accomplishments and about Marcelo Garcia, but the innovations that you created, your controls, the introduction of the certain techniques, such as the arm drag and the X guard, all these different things. When I talk specifically about the controls, that seems something so insignificant now, but the over under control was something that people were not really doing before your time in 2003. The way you took backs was not happening. What was happening in ADCC, jiu-jitsu guys were going out against wrestlers, pulling guard and trying to armbar them from close guard, and it wasn't working. But you were the guy that kind of brought jiu-jitsu back. You were taking the wins for jiu-jitsu against the wrestlers by taking their back and choking them out. So my question to you is, after that long speech there, did you see something at that time? Did you see there was a hole in the system of jiu-jitsu that you needed to fix, or was that just Marcelo Garcia's technique kind of being introduced to the world?
Baleia, I really appreciated that, and but I didn't know. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know that was a change. I didn't know I have to change something. I just know that, obviously, like we all know that it's really hard to meet a good wrestling from the close guard unless you have a really high level and the wrestling maybe not used to the ground stuff. Was we all know it was really hard. I always knew that was hard, but at the same time, I never have like a great close guard, right? But at the same time, I was always trying to adapt. When I say adapt, like I start doing nogi after brown belt. I start really focusing nogi like after I was forced to. I didn't like nogi, so I was forced to kind of like have to adapt my jiu-jitsu that was only with the gi. And in a time that I didn't have no option. And I feel like many times that's the best way to develop something when you have no option. I feel like that's one of the best way to figure something out when you have no option. It's just like when you have to learn another language and then you get thrown to another country and nobody will speak your language and you have to figure out the language. When you have no option, I feel that's when things kind of like get developed, and that's what I felt that happened to me. I just didn't know what to do and I have to figure out. But one more time, I really like to bring that up. I just enjoy so much what I was doing. I was just enjoy, and I want so much to be able to live from jiu-jitsu that I was doing whatever I need, whatever I can, so I can live and have a jiu-jitsu lifestyle. So I was basically spending all my time on the mat to try to figure out how can I make that work. Someone that was just come from the gi, and now that no gi was getting so popular, was having way more extra like a no gi tournaments that I feel I don't want to be left out there too. I want to be able to enjoy all the jiu-jitsu scenario. I want to be able to enjoy like the gi tournament. I want to be able to enjoy like the no gi tournament. So it was just like a adapt situation that I was just forced to.
Gotcha. And you kind of mentioned something that I wanted to ask you. Is you said sometimes you have to evolve when you have no other choice. One of the most famous stories in jiu-jitsu is a guy like Roberto Gordo that hurt his knee and developed a half guard. Did you ever find yourself in your years maybe changing, modifying, or inventing a position based on an injury or a consequence of maybe something hurting in your body? Or did that, or Marcelo Garcia is just truly that indestructible and he never had to do that?
But yeah, I'm all broke. I'm all broke, but I'm not broke now. I'm broke since I was like um, 17 years old. I
Mhm.
think my injuries was always like something that I have to do, and that's okay. That's okay when you just keep pushing the bar. That's okay when you just keep kind of try find the limit. But jiu-jitsu led us to adapt, and I think that happens to me. I wasn't sure. I didn't know that about Gordo. That's how he developed the half guard. Gordo was always a big inspiration. That he was the first black belt, like a world champ that was able to roll. I was just a kid. I would just figure out a way. He used to teach in a city, and then I ended up having like my family vacation. I was there, and then one day I was like, "Well, I'm doing jiu-jitsu. I can go there and just do a train with him." I don't think he remembered that, but it was just so much fun to be able to just be able to roll with someone like that. Obviously, I didn't roll. I rolled with
Mhm.
him, but obviously, like it was almost like I didn't roll because I remember I couldn't do anything. I was just like a yellow belt, blue belt, most probably yellow belt. But I believe on that. I believe on that. That what you just said. Um, when I began jiu-jitsu, I thought you need flexibility. When I say flexibility, like you need your body be like a rubber band. I that's what we heard. We heard so many stuff, and I thought you need to be like the most flexible guy, do all the splits, and I used to do all that stuff, not natural. I used to just force my flexibility so much, force like a. I even hurt my groin because I was just forcing so much, and then I have to stop doing split because I just did too much. But obviously, it's not natural. I'm not like the most flexible guy like this. You know what I mean? Like so, but I was always forced. In Baleia, I thought to do guard, you need to be flexible. So I started doing like a lot of this. You know what I mean? I used to push this so much. I used to get like this, like behind my head. One day I hurt my knee, and I hurt it really bad, and I couldn't really like recover. I couldn't really like bring my leg in. I couldn't do like any like a open guard, and I stayed like probably 4 weeks without train, maybe more, maybe 5 weeks. I didn't went to the doctor. I was too young, and obviously we just don't know what we're doing. I didn't care. I thought it would be okay. That was the first time I hurt my knee. But then I came back slow. I come back slow, doing something different. I come back slow, just like a lift with the butterfly guard. I didn't know it was a butterfly guard. I just know that some people doing like recover with the knee with a foot inside between the legs, and I just started doing that. And then I stayed a long time because my knee was so injured and probably took a long time to recover. That I wasn't doing more like this. I wasn't doing more like this with the leg. I was doing more like just like a lift, you know what I mean, and just kick. And was a movement that I can do over and over. My knee was very messed up to go to the side, but was strong to go kind of up with my leg. And that's what that's when I kind of like start to develop. Um, when I say develop, like that's when I start to learn the butterfly guard. And I feel that's the good thing about jiu-jitsu. I feel like you just adapt to whatever disability you have, whatever injury you have. And I think that's what was so important for me. Once I learned that you can hurt something, you can hurt your arm, you can hurt your wrist, but you still can use the other wrist, you still can use the other part of your body. I never really stay much out of the mat because I was always like, okay, I heard this, but I can do that. I heard my ankle, my leg, but then I can work like a good side control escape. I can work, but obviously it's hard for the ego. It's hard for the ego to train when you injure. It's hard to like to train with people that sometimes they feel they you can feel they feel like, oh, I'm beating him up, but then you're hurt, but then you know for yourself, but then you feel like but I still need to train. So it's hard for your ego, but I feel that's something that we have to overcome every day in jiu-jitsu. So I'm glad you should just give that chance, you know what I mean, to adapt.
You talk about you trying to force your flexibility and your stretching. The first thing that comes to my mind, and I have to ask you, Marcelo, did you try to do the Jean-Claude Van Damme split with the two chairs ever? I visualize Marcelo trying the splits like that, but did you ever try that?
I'm sure I did. I'm sure I did, but I don't think that was that safe. So probably I figured out like I'm doing the floor, you know what I mean. But I was always doing split ballet. Ballet, that was like my routine. Guys, we don't know much. When I started jiu-jitsu, like all my group, uh, my teacher was a judo teacher. He used to take me to do jiu-jitsu in my first jiu-jitsu school, what was Iran, in another city. So we don't know much, guys. It was a mess. I'm sorry to tell, you know what I mean? I don't want to depreciate his work, but it was a mess, guys. We don't know much. And my routine was like, I need to open split before I train. I need to be able to put my foot behind my head before I train. And when I roll back, I need to touch my both knees on the floor. That was my routine. And I
Mhm.
didn't train if I don't do that. And it was kind of like, we just uh, it was almost like a caveman jiu-jitsu. That's how I feel. We just don't know much. We just have to do something, and that's what I was doing. But then, obviously, like after a couple years, I realized I don't need that. I don't. You don't have to do this to be able to learn jiu-jitsu. The same thing with competing. Uh, I was so like awkward how to compete, what to do. I was not able to eat before I go compete, ballet. So so many crazy things that we kind of like got used and thought was okay because I felt like, oh, if I eat, I'm gonna feel sick and maybe I'm gonna puke on the mat. So I was so used to, and that lasts a long time. I compete maybe my first 4 or 5 years in jiu-jitsu, not be able to eat before I go compete, and
Wow.
that doesn't make sense because sometimes you compete all day. How are you gonna stay
Yeah.
all day without eat? And then obviously, like little by little, I start to learn and figure things out. You know what I mean? That makes more sense. You know.
Yeah. Marcelo, you were obviously, you're the guy that people, I mean, my generation, we got your VHSs at the time, and we saw you compete, and everyone was just dying to see your new technique, and it was like, man, when you're Marcelo Garcia, the first VHS series came out, it was like it was Bible for everyone. And nowadays we're in a generation where there's YouTube on your hand, there's TikTok, there's Facebook, there's all sorts of technologies that help jujitsu, but also, maybe not so much. What are your thoughts on, what Shaolin said to me once is this TikTok jujitsu that, the generation of today has coming into it. Do you think that sometimes, too much information is no information, or do you think it's all good and everyone should just embrace every technique that they see?
Baleia, I don't like to feel old. You make me feel old, but I don't like
I'm
to go that
sorry.
direction that much.
I'm sorry.
But I don't like to go to on that direction. I don't like to think age, you know what I mean? But obviously, like
Okay.
age is good. I can't complain. I prefer to get old. I prefer to get old than die young. You understand? So I'm happy to get really old, but I can't. I don't want to think about that much because that you know many times we see age old and like something bad, but I feel like we just learn more. But
Yeah.
obviously, like VHS, I don't even know. I thought it was more DVDs on my time, but maybe the VHS of the mats. You know what I mean? Maybe. You
Maybe
know.
maybe
But
that
I
maybe
understand that
I had the copy of the copy that was on VHS at the
could be,
time.
could be, but
I couldn't afford DVD at the time, so yeah. But
could
continue.
could be, could be, but. Baleia, we just cannot miss, we just cannot like lose the mean of jiu-jitsu. And obviously there's so many means. I'm just saying like the one that like I believe the most, the one that I believe like make more sense for me. We all have a different means of jiu-jitsu, you know. But the mean of jiu-jitsu of to go to the submission. And when I say go to the submission, it's not just like a go submit, lose a position, but you try get the tap. No, I mean like has like a construction match, has a construction developed. And what I'm trying to say, like get control, dominate a position, and then look for the submission, look to the next move, look to the next step. I feel like guys, this is so much more fun. This is just too much fun in jiu-jitsu when you're able to go all the way to the ending. Guys, win a match by decision, win a match by referee decision. Guys, doesn't even get close to submit a match. You know what I mean? And I'm sorry, but I can talk about that. You know what I mean? When you're able to submit a match, when you're able to win by one advantage or maybe 2 points, guys, there's not even comparison, Baleia. So my whole point is like jiu-jitsu is so much fun. So what I don't agree and I don't want to and I wish that never happens to the jiu-jitsu get stabilized to only like okay, there's only one position. There is a position that like people doesn't know how to get out, and people is just take advantage of that. So I feel like jiu-jitsu has to continue to be developed all the way to the submission. So my whole point is like you do a takedown. Now that you do a takedown, you're in the side control, in the guard. Oh no, you need to pass the guard. Now you're already in the side control. Okay, now in the side control, you can go to an armbar, you can go to a choke, you can go to a mount. Or in the mount, now you can go to submission. Or you cannot get the submission, now you can go to the back. I feel like it's just so much more fun, Ballet, when you just have the whole like complex of jiu-jitsu like develop. What I'm trying to say, like I can be on the bottom, I can be on the top, I can be in a bad position. I have idea what to do, and I'm basic like almost comfortable to do something from any like a really bad position and from any like a good position too. I don't think my body is made for triangle, but I can do triangle too. But my whole point is, Valeria, today there is so much developing that people is just not going too far. There's so many new things being developed, especially because how much we can learn today. Today we don't learn by just VHS or DVD or just book. Today there's like a YouTube. You can learn anything on YouTube. I learn a lot of other things on YouTube. I learn how to cook in YouTube. So my whole point is that like today there's so many ways to learn that people start to kind of try learn everything a little bit of each, and then they end up not having anything consistent on their game, and that's
Gotcha.
unfortunate. That's something that like I feel bad for sometimes the jiu-jitsu today when they not be able to really develop like a consistent like a game, what some people like to call, but like a technique after the technique, because I believe you learn one technique, but after the technique there's another one, and you need to keep going. You need to keep
Mhm.
going until you finish a match, because it is funny, guys. It is fun, and it's priceless, and it's so reward when you're able to make sure like you get a submission in a match and not just by advantage.
You know, you talk about the evolution of the game and different styles of the games. One thing that I always wondered was, you know, you have two careers essentially. One as a world champion competitor, one of the greatest of all time. But now you're coaching, and you're coaching, some beasts out there in New York. Guys like Mateus Denise and Johnny Grippo, but who's who of top level competitors. How do you coach a guy like, specifically thinking about a guy like Johnny Grippo, because Johnny's style is more of that, that modern jiu-jitsu De La Riva, reverse De La Riva, and it's not so close to what you were doing. So what sort of things do you focus on somebody with a style like that? Or if you have students that are developing sort of different styles or different games, as a coach, what do you do to cultivate those styles, even if that's not your style? So this is coming from a selfish aspect, me wanting to know for the better of my students, and I think also the general public. How does a coach kind of help a student develop their own game, even if it's not theirs?
Baleia, I don't know if people know, but I'm coming like a long way. When I say long way, like I'm willing to share my jiu-jitsu with everybody, and since the beginning. Today we have a gym. Today we charge for a membership, but that's not the most important. This is just so we can make a live. But the most important, like I'm willing to open up anything that I know on my mind to just try to offer to help people to learn jiu-jitsu. And I do this since I began jiu-jitsu as a blue belt. That helps my develop, because like when somebody asks me something and I try to show them or teach or express like how I did something, that makes me better. And when I say makes me better, I know people say that all the time, but what I'm trying to say, like, that makes my brain has to go back. I have to rewind like what I did, and I have to figure it out and then show something. So I'm coming like a long way, and I'm sure I have done a lot of mistakes as a coach too. But today I feel like I'm able to figure out that I cannot change someone's game, but I can add something for someone's game. And when I say I cannot change someone's game, if the person doesn't want to change, right? I can try help to add new stuff, make some change. But if the person doesn't want it, there's nothing you can do. But today, as instructor, I know that I don't need to change someone's game, but I can add something. And I think that's what I'm looking for. Like even Journey, he doesn't do probably like my favorite moves, but I know there's something that I can add for him, like anyone else. And to be able to add something in the game, I think that's what it's all about. But we have to add things. We cannot be comfortable just with what we have. We have to
Mm-hmm.
be able to kind of like collect like a new things, but new things that make sense. We don't want to just know a little bit of everything, and does in the end we don't know anything. We need to collect moves that we're gonna add something for our game, and then we need to collect another moves that we're gonna continue to extending what we just learned now, and then we make that like a long like a thread of like of techniques and options, because we need options when we fight with like a people from all over the world today. People has a different game, people has different body style, so we need to be able to have options to deal with all different techniques. And for example, if someone that like Gianni, I don't have to only add with techniques, but I can add a lot of with his mindset. I don't want to go too far on Gianni's like mistakes and difficult, you know what I mean? But we all have difficulties. We all have problems. We all have problems. And as a human being, he has his problems too. And when I say problem, like he's difficult in jiu-jitsu. And we have talked a lot. We have a lot of conversation go over a lot of like a situation that we need to be able to um, get the most out of. We will need to be able to figure out what to do from that situation, especially when we go through a loss. When we win, everybody's happy, everybody's good. But when you go to a
Hmm.
loss, we need to go over and try figure this out. When I say figure this out, oh, this technique was wrong. Only do this. No, it's not only about that. It's like sometimes it was only one mistake that lead to that submission, but it's most about like what lead you to make that first mistake, because I'm sure there's a lot of mistakes after the first mistake, but the first mistake is almost like more important than all the other ones, because we don't want to make the first mistake. The first mistake is when everything starts to get break. So what I'm trying to say, like, there's a lot that I feel like I can add, even when the person maybe doesn't have like my jiu-jitsu style, for example. You know what I mean?
Got it. I love that aspect. I love hearing about your, philosophy of coaching, and like you said, being able to add to students, I think is a great thing as opposed to, trying to change their game. Now, talking about your game, we're going to go into the next section of the show, which is my favorite part, which is everyone really likes to see, is where we go into breaking down matches. So we're going to take a look at some of your matches from all the way back in 2002, and I want to hear you kind of critique yourself and look at what you did maybe right or wrong, and hear from you, what was going through your head, or specifically about these matches, maybe a little bit of history. And before we get started on match number one, I want to give a big thank you to our mutual friend Damian Maya for allowing me to use his footage from his YouTube channel. Guys, if you go to the Damian Maya Brazil YouTube channel, you can check out a ton of really cool matches, Marcelo's matches, Damian's matches. He's got, never before seen 10-a-day matches. So huge thank you to Damian Maya. But let's start with the first match. Brady, if you got match number one lined up. So Marcelo, from what I understand, this is against Adriano Pires in 2002. I've never seen you compete with just a t-shirt. It's usually a rash guard or nothing else on. But tell us about this match. Maybe if you remember the
Uh,
tournament or the fighter.
that's the reality, Baleia. People doesn't know, but before in Brazil, the only no gi clothes that we know is like your oldest clothes that you have. That's your no gi outfit.
Mm,
The
okay.
oldest clothes that you can find, that's your no gi outfit. So over there, probably I got like maybe one sponsor. I was just using his shirt because that's what normal we do. I mean, if you get a sponsor, it was no gi, just put his shirt. There was no rash guard in that time. And that
Yep.
was a time that I still felt if I don't shave my head, I always shave my head since I was like probably 15. But if I don't shave my head before I go compete, I cannot win a match. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but that was
It makes
something on
sense.
my mind, and
I I think it
I'm
works.
glad. I'm glad about it. But you guys can see how far back was that. You know what I mean? But Adriano was a really tough opponent because I believe was already like a black belt. I don't know if that meant we both a black belt because in that same tournament, in that same like it was a circuit, we to compete. I was There was a time that was brown belt, and to compete with the black belt with the pros, I have to win my division in the brown belt. So I don't know if that one I was
Okay.
brown belt, I was already black belt, but I was competing probably in that same time. Maybe that mad. I was still brown belt, and I need to be a black belt to be able to compete with all the pro. That's what they call, because they don't call just black belt because there was no gi. But Bali, that was so much. When I see a match like that, there's so much like difference than today. What I'm trying to say, like there was so many less options for me. Like for example, I never
Hmm.
agree today to have someone's back and have your head on the floor. When you have your head on the floor, today for me is a fall. You know what I mean? You can't have your head on the floor. You're complete off of someone's back. You know what I mean? You're not like a square with the person's back. You know what I mean? You need to be square. You need to have your head next to the person's head. When your head pass someone's head like that, I feel like you lose in the back. You lose the control of your weight. For example, that was when I
Gotcha.
see a match like that. I can criticize me like all day.
I want to take a look at one clip from the match, and I think it's a two-part clip here. If we can pull that up, Brady, I believe it's yeah. So you could see the X guard in play there, and eventually you get to the back. Can you talk us through sort of the development of that position, specifically in that match? Like, were you waiting for a shift in his body movement? Were you forcing the movement to change, or can you tell us a little bit about the X guard maybe in that match specifically?
Look, the X guard comes a long way, right? I don't know if people know, comes from a lot of mistake that I have made with the butterfly guard. That one hook was not enough, and they start adding all the hooks. But one thing that people doesn't always think is like when you have a X guard position like that, you cannot just show the person which way you're taking. You know what I mean? You cannot just kind of like a slow go to one direction or the other. You cannot just like a show that like you lean the person towards one way or the other. Has to be like a flash. Has to be like I'm not fast, but I try to all the speed that I have. When I feel that's a moment, I just like explode with just one burst of a movement. And I feel that's what works over there. I think that's what makes the
Mm-hmm.
difference on that move. I was able to like he doesn't know if I go left or right, and then when I felt like he was more like a relaxed, kind of like distracting, not ready to react, I just come up quick with the leg on top of my shoulder and with my head straight up, because a lot of people come out from there with their head down and they lose the leg. So in that point, I was just kind of try to do an explosion uh, in that moment.
And you saw the clip there at the end of the clip. You took the back, much like we're used to seeing Marcelo Garcia style, so quick. How are you able to kind of develop that speed in your back take? Because it was something that was very unique. We never, it was the way you moved. Even Damian Maya said it. The way you had the ability to get your hips and legs around a person's back at that time was not happening. We did not see that in no-gi grappling. People would slowly maybe get to the back off of like a bad shot or sprawl. But the way you were taking it off of the reverse half guard and something like similar to what we saw in that clip, how did you develop your back taking?
But yeah, I think that will gonna make sense if I can just add this up. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. I don't give a credit to my technique. I most give a credit that to the situation, to the scenario. We look for submission. We look for a wrist lock. We look for like a armbar. We look for a heel hook. This is a very small part of the body. People can hide. You can put your wrist under your armpit.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody will never gonna touch your wrist. You know what I mean? You can keep your feet on the floor. You know what I mean? Nobody ever gonna touch if you just don't approach the other person. But the back, it's so hard to hide your back. Your back is such a big part of the body of the opponent's body that if you want to chase the person's back, many times the back is going to be exposed. Many times. So back then, I just put on my mind that like I'm gonna try to get to someone's back like for anywhere I can, because I know the back is gonna be there. I know the back is gonna come out of the floor. Nobody can stay on the floor like 24 hours in a match. So my whole point is like when the person move and I see the back, I'll jump on the back. So that was kind of like the idea. So it's not much like a technique, but it was just a scenario
Mm-hmm.
that I believe that my opponent couldn't hide from me. He can even tuck the neck, but I can take the back, you know what I mean? And then I can take my time to get the submission after as soon as I can. But hide the back, it's something that I don't think people always think about, but it's really hard to your opponent hide from you.
Very interesting. Okay, so let's take a look at the second match that I lined up for you today. Again, from Damian Maya's channel, this is Andre Jacquin from 2002. I'm thinking it's the same tournament, Ubatuba in Sao Paulo. Talk us through this match, a little bit about Jacquin, a little bit more about this tournament, and maybe some of the different attacks. One of the things that I've seen from a lot of these videos on Damian's channel was you were shooting a lot more singles and doubles in earlier part of your career. Was that something that you just felt more comfortable doing, or were you still kind of growing in your own game? But it was definitely a lot more wrestling involved in your early matches.
Baleia, I like to say that because I always give a credit when I know, you know what I mean? And me and Damien, we compete against each other since we are blue belt. No, purple belt, I'm sorry. But we compete the same tournaments in alliance since we are blue belt. And competing against each other, see each other in the tournaments, be a friend. Um, I always look for his jiu-jitsu. And that was something that I always saw he doing that I was always so amazing. His shot to a double leg was different than many other people. It was way different. Even was a brown belt. He was still a brown belt. Obviously, I look up for a black belt, but when he was a brown belt, his shot to the leg was something that was always instigating me. I was like, man, he gets to the double leg from so far. He take a really far shot and he still make it. So watching him doing that, and I know that I don't have that, I always felt like I want to practice that. And then because I always felt he was doing so good, I was like, I want to do that good too. So I started just practicing. And I don't think I have a great double leg, but I do, and I try, and I go forward. I'm not afraid of my neck. You know what I mean? I feel like there's an option what to do after, you know, after you shoot a double leg. But was based because that, you know.
Yeah, Brady, could we replay that match again? Very interesting about Damian Maya. I know that he mentioned it to me as well, about his wrestling and how much you guys train together. But let's talk a little bit about this match specifically, Marcelo. Do you remember this guy, Jacquin? And what was going on in this match here? Tell me a little bit about, break down a little bit about what's going on with the techniques in this match as well, if you can.
But hey, if I've been honest, you know what I mean, and I like to be honest with my emotions. He looks so tough. I was just a young kid. I was like probably like a 20, that probably 20, maybe even 19. But when when you see a grown old man, you know what I mean, he was already probably like a close to his studies, probably. But when you see someone that look tough, you always feel a little bit hesitated, and that's what I felt. But I never let that intimidated my performance. I always felt, guys, I can feel every fear. You know what I mean? Every fear that we can list, I can fear on the mat, I can feel in the life, but that doesn't make me hesitate to my reactions. So that's something that I'm glad I learned that. I'm able to do that. But I felt like he would be a tough opponent. I just felt like he's older, probably he was already a black belt, and I was just trying to use like the technique that I have, but he was a tough opponent, and I was afraid to make a mistake, obviously, you know what I mean. But I'm glad everything works out, you know.
It looked like you were kind of ahead of every single movement. You had a counter to a second move to a third move. As you see right here, you're getting to the back off of his kind of turtle attempt. Did you feel that he was just a little slower than you, or were you just kind of going through the motions at this point?
I think it's literally about the no-gi game, Baleia. A lot of people was just still not used to the no-gi game. You know, people
Mm.
was literally like still behind. Even on that, even he was a black belt. Probably he was just not so into no-gi. People used to complain. People used to complain like, "Oh, there's a no-gi class. Oh, now we don't have the gi class anymore." So probably on the mat, I was already like probably in the mat, I was already accept to learn nogi. Took some time, but probably in the mat, like I was already like a more comfort. Even I can see there was a lot of mistake that I feel like I have done, but I was already like accept to learn nogi, and I felt like probably I was already like more used to nogi than him, and it's something that like when you feel that comfortable, I feel that makes total difference, you know.
Yeah, and as I said, everyone who knows your history knows that your comfortableness and your adaptation and your evolution of your technique and everything that you brought to the table, specifically in no-gi, was so big and obviously transcended into gi. But no-gi is, now it's become one of the most popular facets of the sport, and that's really, your performance in ADCC in 2003 was really, what kind of introduced you to the whole world. I remember hearing from Jacare in 2002, he's like, yeah, Fabio's got this kid, Marcelino, but then it wasn't until a year later that you really broke out in ADCC, and, seeing your performances in no-gi was something that really kind of put your name in the forefront. We have another match here from 2003. I believe this is a I think it's the same place. I think it's in Ubatuba in Sao Paulo, but this is against Marco Sharpe. Brady, we got this is a quick one, which is very Marcelo Garcia style here. But do you remember this match with Sharpe in 2003 here, Marcelo? I
You
see you
know
got
what
a
is
cool
bad,
rash.
Baleia?
What's that?
Baleia, this was already probably, you can see, probably you can see I'm already more comfortable with the rash guard. And when I say comfort, like I
Yep.
was already probably like trained little longer than, I was not more like, in those first match, probably I was training for like a 3 or 4 months jiu-jitsu. In that match, probably I was already like a year doing no gi, you know what I mean? Probably, you know what I mean? But the thing is that he was like a training partner of mine. So it was like a very
Okay.
like uncomfortable situation. You know, he probably has just left the gym when the alliance broke up. It was just like a probably was the first person from the breakout of the alliance that I have to face, and it was very uncomfortable. He was a tough training partner. Obviously, I work out easy on the mat with the guillotine surprise, but was like a very uncomfortable to have to compete with like a old teammate, you know what I mean? But I was already probably like you can see with the shorts and then rash guard was already more like a no gi game, you know what I mean?
Was this? I'm guessing this was before ADCC, or was this after, or do you remember?
It was definitely before, definitely before. Can I tell a funny
Okay.
story? Like, can I
Yes,
do that?
please.
Um,
Yeah.
those matches are very important for me because those are was right preview ADCC 2003, and the ADCC is so important in my life because that's when people start get to recognize my jiu-jitsu, right? I think everybody knows that. That's when I be able to do a seminar, for example. You know, it was because was a change. You know, it was a life change that my first ADCC. I need to say that. You know, so that was right before, and those matches was lost. I never heard about those matches, those videos before. And then one day, Damien just told me, "Oh, I got a lot of your matches." I was like, "How? And which one?" And then he started to describe. I was like, "Oh, I can't believe you have those matches." So he started putting those up. You know what I mean? So those matches, like, it just start bring a lot of old memories from like before your life changed. I don't know how is important is that. You know, I'm not talking about rich guys. I'm not saying about I got rich after the ACC, but I enjoy so much jiu-jitsu that I know that after the DCC 2003, I knew that I was going to be able to leave jiu-jitsu forever. I was going to be able to kind of like make jiu-jitsu my leave. So that's why when I'm saying like after the ADCC in 2003, I don't need to go chase for a training partner like I did before. After the DCC in 2003, I know people's going to want to train jiu-jitsu with me because that's what happened after DCC in 2003. A Japanese just arrived in Japan wants to train with me, and they was so like overwhelmed. I was like, I can't believe this happened. But my whole point is that like that those mats bring a lot of like old memories before ADCC,
Mhm.
right? And this guy from the last mat, right before the ADCC, he makes a really bad joke with me. He was a very funny guy, but he did a really bad joke with me because I lost my Abu Dhabi trials in the ADCC of 2003. I lost the trials because I pulled guard. I pulled guard in the final. I got
Yeah.
minus point. I lost the trials. Right. I just want to bring it up out there. And I got second place. Terere was on the trials. He lost the same guy by points, and he got invited to the DCC in 2003. He got invited, and Terere was obviously, like everybody knows, a tough, respectful, really tough fighter, really unbelievable fighter. And I didn't got invited to the DCC in 2003. That week, I saw this guy that I just compete, and then he come up to me, Bale, and then he said, Marcel, do you want to buy some tickets to go watch Terere compete in the DCC? And it was a
Mhm.
really bad joke. He was not trying to just sell tickets. He sell tickets. He was selling some
Yeah.
tickets, but he knew I was not gonna buy. But he just want to make fun of me because I didn't got invited, and I lost in the trials. And then he said, "You wanna buy some tickets to go watch Terere fight in the DCC?" Oh, that was so bad. And I'm really bad to answer those stuff. I got mad. I get angry. I can think about something later, but I'm really slow to answer like an argument.
Mhm. Yeah.
Just something that it's my personality. I don't have like I cannot respond to like a argument right away, and that really hurt me on that week before the DCC in 2003, Baleia. And I got upset because Terere got third place and he got invited. I got second place and I didn't get invited. But I still felt maybe I'm gonna be invited. And everybody probably knows I got invited in the ADCC 2003 in the last minute. Obviously, like I think people knows I won the ADCC. The guy who beat me in the try, he lost. Terere lost. The guy who I did the final was the guy who I Otto Awesome was the guy who
Auto,
beat
yeah.
Terere and Daniel Moraes. So I beat the guy in the final. And the funny thing was that I saw the guy who tried to sell me the chicas that day, you know what I mean? After I won the match, you know. And I told him I'm not good to argue with people, but I got mad, I got upset, and I have something that I need to tell him after that. You know, as soon that I saw him, I need to say something. You know, I mean, I felt like I need to say something, and I came up to him and I asked him like, "Did you sold a lot of chickens to come watch me?" You know what I mean? And then he make that face, and then he makes that face kind of like, oh, he was kind of like, oh, it was just a joke. You know what I mean? But I just felt I need to say something, and then that was something that like those old mats make me remind that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, knowing you over the years, this I believe every second of this story because it feels like a classic Marcelo comeback. So it's even funnier because knowing you and your style, you're not a very aggressive speaking person, but you're pretty strategic with what you say, and not a very mean person either. So I could see you thinking about that and going back to talk to him about that. Do you feel that that just that the circumstance, did you feel extra motivation in 2003? You mentioned a good point. I didn't know the story about that guy, but obviously with Ted A getting the invite and other people, did you feel like you had this extra motivation or pressure to really make that impression, in the grappling world for that 2003 ADCC, or was it just regular competition as normal?
Baleia, I feel the pressure, and I feel I'm very emotional. When I say emotional, like I don't think people bring it up a lot that I don't show my emotion.
Yeah.
I don't change my semblance when I'm competing. But I feel every emotion. I feel every angry. I feel upset. You know, I feel frustrated. But in a match, I feel it's very important to just don't show that. And I think that's so important to don't, I don't want to feed my opponent. You know what I mean? That's something that I will feed my opponent. That will make him feel like stronger. So I'm used to just always hide that, you know, and I'll hide that like no matter what. I still can hide any of like my tire, my frustration in a match. I can do that, you know what I mean? But I feel like I always have those emotions. Then as a human being, Baleia, I always feel every little thing of this, but I always try hide and don't let my people get the most out of me, like in that situation. I mean, and it's just like I feel like I lost a little bit of question, but that's something that I feel like I just want to bring that up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
What
all
was the
good.
question, please?
I asked you if you had any, if that that situation with like Ted A being invited and just even this, was that extra motivation for you to really perform at that ADCC, or was
Uh,
did things just play out naturally, and that's just just because your technique was much better or you were better as a fighter that year?
yeah, I want to get that, but I'm glad you repeat that. And so it was so much emotion built before that the ADCC. Uh, I just want to tell that is that was the first time I cried before a match. You know, what I mean, I don't understand why I was
Wow.
crying. I was crying like going to the gymnasium. I was crying like I don't understand why. I didn't understand why. But probably there was so much emotion, and that was exactly the emotion that makes me feel like I can do that. And that was the emotion that like so much emotion built up that I felt like was not just the technique that I always believe, but I felt like I can do that because I really, really want that, and I felt that's what leads to that. You know, I mean, it was so much emotion built up as a brown belt not long ago to be able to become a black belt, and you still have to prove something because every time you get a belt, you always doubt yourself. You don't know like if you belong to the belt, and that's normal. I don't think nobody is a black belt once they get black belt. Nobody's a blue belt when they get the blue belt. They get the blue belt the purple belt, the brown belt, because they deserve, but we still have to continue to develop the technique for the level, and that's normal. I think that's okay. So I always felt I need to do that much, but I felt like I want that so much that like uh, that was the reason why I feel everything works out that well. You know what I mean?
You know what? Before we get to the last video, the last match that I want you to break down for me, I have to ask you a question. I remember being in a seminar with you in 2007. We were at Atlanta. Remember the Alliance had like a training camp there, and I remember there was some guys from other team, and you know it wasn't just that time, but it seemed like every time that you did a seminar anywhere, it was almost like you had a target, and it's almost like the entire grappling world that attended your seminars wanted to, basically one person wanted to be the guy that could say, hey, I almost got Marcelo's back, or I almost got close to tapping him, you know. And I saw it with my own eyes, you know, many times, you know, like you mentioned, you've come to Canada a handful of times. You stayed at my house and we hung out, and I brought you to seminars, and I've seen guys literally, like, if they did this on you, they looked at their friend and saw if they were recording, like it was this huge deal. But was there any one crazy or funny story that you have of, you know, rolling with people at seminars, or just in general? Because I remember you told me once, you're like, I still remember this, and you remind me of it. You're like, Baleia, like, it's kind of tough because everyone wants to kill you when you roll. You know what I mean? Like, it's not as easy. He's like, you make it look easy, Marcelo, but I can understand it must not be that easy, because everyone literally at that point, people were like, it was like a scalp. It was like people were trying to collect the scalp and say they did something to Marcelo. So do you have a crazy or a funny story about like rolling, you know, in different parts of the world at seminars or anything like that?
By the way, this is something that definitely happened, but it's my fault too, buddy. I always felt I like to expose myself, and that was something that was works on my favor, buddy. I did that to myself, and could be a little bit like I just want to prove a point. You know, could be just like a hard head. You just want to prove a point to try roll with everybody. When I say everybody, obviously there is like 60 people on the mat. I probably not be able to roll with everybody. But that time on the seminar, I try roll with as many people I can. And many times I have faced like a really tough like students. And the funny thing, many times I don't know if they're the tough ones or not. You know what I mean? Many times I choose the tough ones. Yeah, when I say the tough one, you go to a seminar, you look someone, they're like, oh, that guy looks like he's the highest belt here. That guy looks like he was the most like a um, comfort on this environment, and they can see, and they're like, okay, I want to train with the guy. So basic, I put myself in those situations, but many times, obviously, that was really tough. But Balea, there was a moment in my career that like for 5 years or more, everybody just want to arm drag me. Everybody was like, it was like something crazy. I was like, don't arm drag me, because that's something that I almost feel like I'm expecting, but they just keep try arm drag me. But at the same time, obviously, like I learned how to calm down drag, you know what I mean? So it's something that works both
Mm.
ways, you know what I mean? Was always some people like arm drag, try arm drag me, but at the same time they arm drag me, I arm drag them, and then it would just keep like a loop going over and over. But it was a little bit like that, you know what I mean? But I can remember like one tough situation, and it was many of them, you know what I mean? And people always try less and don't tap. That was sometimes was a little bit annoying. People want to
Yeah.
roll with me, and then they just want to just kind of like just like don't tap, and you lose a little bit of the fun when somebody's doing this. But at the same time, you practicing to compete against someone that just doesn't want to move that much. Sometimes they just want to hold themselves in the guard, and it was really hard. I don't say it was easy, but at the same time, that got me very like open to learn. Uh, all these seminars that you mentioned, Baleia, you probably remember how many were those. And I have done so many seminars all over the world, and I think this was just something that like really make me learn a lot. When I say learn a lot, I mean learn like how all the people's reaction. And I think this is so important in life, in jiu-jitsu, to learn how to like deal and connect and get to know all the people. And obviously, I'm talking about even just the games, all the people's jiu-jitsu, all the people's quality. You know what I mean? And start realize when people make the mistakes and most common mistake that people makes. And this was a lot like a part of like a learn process. And I'm really like a thank you for how that works out, because that was a big part of my learn process of jiu-jitsu, and I'm still learning, I'm still want to learn, I'm still need to learn more, you know what I mean?
I never thought I'd hear it be part of your learning. So that's really eye opening for me to hear. It's super humbling, you know, as you are, Marcelo Garcia. You're a very humble guy, and it's so cool to hear you say that. So before we get to the last part of the show, we're gonna do one more breakdown. Do you got enough time for it, Marcelo?
I have time, I'm fine.
Okay. Okay. So we're going to go to match number 4. This is another match from Damian Maia's YouTube channel. This is against Rafael. I don't get his name, but it's in 2003, I believe. And it
Rafael
was
Rosendo, Baleia.
okay. Okay. So tell us more,
You know,
Marcelo. You know the
you know
name?
he's from Alliance now, he's from Alliance now.
Oh, okay. He was one of Cobrinia's guys, right?
Yeah, I don't know if I think
Ah,
he's more like Lucas, he lives close to Lucas.
okay. I didn't piece it together that that was him, but talk us through this match, Marcelo.
Uh, One more time, I like to talk about my fears, guys. This guy was a promise. I'm sorry about this guy because he's a friend of mine now, but Rafael, he was a promise. And his coach was always like really like bagging about, not bag, I don't know if that's the word, but gabbling. I don't know.
Got
His coach was always like talk so good about it. So kind of his coach was always
bragging.
try to put like a bragging. His coach was always try to put a fear on everybody, and I used to heard that so much. So I went to that match like really like a you know when you're kind of extra sensitive, just make sure like, oh, I hope the person doesn't jump on me. I hope he doesn't do any like a crazy submission or something. So I was very like scared of like something comes out because his coach was always putting like, and that time when I was competing Rafael, I don't know if I was lucky or not, but I was doing no gis, right? So in the no gi, I was in the match can show that I was more confident than him, you know what I mean? And I don't know if people recognize, but in the match, just to make sure I was comfortable, I was putting my foot back in the half guard and taking my foot out because I know that was point. So I was putting my foot and getting more points, and then I put in the foot back, and then the referee was giving more points. This was just something that that was 9 points over there, just because like a 3 guard pass, and it was just because he was holding my foot. And I heard somebody screaming like, "Don't grab his leg again because you're just giving him extra points." But
Yeah.
this was just in case something happened, in case he was able to reverse. And like I said, guys, I have all the fears when I'm on the mat, and I want to kind of cover all those fears. I want to like guarantee myself like, in case like something happens, because I'm open up for all this situation. I'm open up for all the scenarios on the mat, and I was just afraid maybe he would do a comeback, maybe do a reverse. And as long as I have more points than him, probably I'm gonna win the mat. That was like the scenario on the mat when I was just putting my foot and take my foot out, and that works really well in ADCC too, Baleia. In ADCC, every time you put the foot, uh, every time you put the hook in the bag and you take the hook out, every
Yeah.
time you get points. That's part of the rules that I really appreciate that. Someone that likes to take the back, you know what I mean? But that tournament, I remember this day because Rafael, because in that moment he was from the TT,
Mm,
that he was
that's right.
not more with his old coach. He was on the TT. That day, I competed against André Galvão, probably my first time. Um, I competed against like a old training partner of mine, old, really tough one, Reinaldo Ribeiro. So that tournament was really tough for me, personal, because a lot of people got by. I don't know if it makes sense. It was a little bit of my
Yeah.
life be kind of the only black belt that was still competing left in the alliance. Most like obviously that was another black belt, but I was the one that was really doing everything. Like all the tournaments. But everybody was getting a bye, Baleia. I remember like uh, after him, someone give a bye to Andre, and then Andre came with like a one extra last with less mat than me. And then when I competed with the my old training partner that I told, someone give a bye for him. So it was like a, do you know when you feel you're the only one in the bracket and everybody was kind of helping each other, and then but I can't complain because it works out. So I don't want to be crying about that, but those are the type of the emotion that like you have to deal, and you don't want to let those things overcome like your performance. It's very important. Like even things looks really bad for you, you cannot accept that is really bad. You cannot just look like oh, this looks so bad, I want to just look for the bad side. So one more time, that was like a lesson that I learned. Like doesn't matter if you're a small team, doesn't matter if you're a single guy competing. um, I was lucky that was like some training partners over there. I think Soluço, Tassis, Alex, my wife, they're all there to support me. But on my bracket uh, of like 3 or 4 mats, I did 4. Everybody was doing 2, 1. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Everybody was doing at least 1 mat less than me, and it was kind of frustrating. You know, it's something that like I remember exactly on that match that bracket was really tough on that weight. You know.
Yeah, I like your philosophy on not accepting defeat. You know, it's good for jiu-jitsu and it's good for life. Much like jiu-jitsu, you know, like there's a lot of similarities in the philosophy of jiu-jitsu that kind of transcend into life and vice versa. Man, Marcelo, having you talk about some of those historical matches has been such a treat for me. And I there's so many more I wish I could play here, but I know we're running out of time. So we've kind of come to the last portion of the show, which is kind of a fun part where I call it the rapid fire questions. I'm going to ask you 10 questions, and you're allowed to answer these questions with 1 or 2 words only. I want to try to surprise you. Nothing bad. And, you know, some are about jiu-jitsu and some are about regular stuff. So are you ready for this, Marcelo?
I'm ready. Do you know what a manji cake means?
Yes, I can't believe you remember that. That's amazing. Okay. There's only I can't
Now you have to
we'll get to
explain
that.
that. Now you have.
No, we'll get to that to another time, Marcelo Garcia. Okay, listen. Question number 1. Sushi or pizza? What's your favorite cheat meal?
Sushi.
Number 2. What's your favorite grappling rule set?
You just go.
Okay. Your Who do you think, in your opinion, was the greatest grappler of all time? You could say Marcelo Garcia. I don't care. But if there's somebody else, who do you think it was?
Hickson Grace.
Where was your favorite travel destination? I know you've been all over the world. Where was your favorite place to travel to?
Um, New York.
Hmm. One word to describe Marcelo Garcia.
Happy.
That's very accurate. What was you, what was the greatest grappling match of all time that you saw, or for you that you experienced?
Um, um, there's so many, Baleia, but let's talk about like my first match against Harger. You know,
Okay. Now I
I
know
lost. You know,
yeah, but that was, I mean, that was a special year, 2004, right? That was a big one.
I heard my coach. I heard my coach telling just keep going, and that means a lot. You know, on the mat. You know, for me, you know.
Absolutely.
It was more like
So
don't
now,
give up. You know what I mean? So it
yeah,
was good. Was good for me. I learned a
and at
lot on
that
the
time,
mat. You know.
yeah, and at that time, Hodger tore through everyone, and of course had that big match with Jacare. That was amazing to see. Okay, non-jiu-jitsu question. Uh, you know, I know you like your comedies. I know you like your funny movies. What's your favorite comedy? Your favorite funny movie to watch?
Uh, super bad.
Okay, so right now, FloGrappling, the guys at FloGrappling and the guys at Flow Wrestling have like a little kind of feud, and we're trying to determine. And I ask everyone, who's tougher, the grapplers, like the jiu-jitsu guys, or the wrestlers out there? Who do you think is tougher, the grapplers or the wrestlers?
Definitely wrestling. Wrestling is much tougher, you know what I mean? But I feel he's smarter, you know what I mean? I feel he's smarter.
What do you think is more challenging, being a world champion competitor or being a father?
A father for sure, you know what I mean? Because a father is just not just go compete, you know what I mean? It's so many dimensions. A father for sure, you know? And I didn't know that, but you become a father way before me, you know what I mean? And I apologize. I never have like appreciated how much like hard it is for any father out there, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and the more you have, the more challenging it becomes because there's jealousy,
I
there's more
believe,
problems.
I believe.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I got stories for you after this call, Marcelo. We'll get to that another time. Okay, my last question: if there's one competitor that you never fought, that you've always wanted to face, and not like in a bad way, but just to test your skills against, it could be somebody of your generation, prior to you, or today. Who would it have been?
Baleia, I don't know if people know, but like I really enjoy to train with even my opponents. I really enjoy, you know, and when I say compete, I just want to be able to train. I just want to be able to feel. And obviously, I wish to be able to feel how it is to roll with Hickson Grace. And not about like go compete and try beat him. I wish to be able to just feel, you know what I mean? But I would love to be able to one day roll with Hickson, but obviously like maybe doesn't even want to roll, doesn't even care, doesn't even maybe doesn't even enjoy rolling anymore. I don't know. But I like to do the same with Nino Chambry. You know, what I mean, it would be fun one day to be able to just feel, just to roll with him. You know what I mean? And it's not competing. I'm not talking about competing. You know what I mean?
No.
I really appreciate it to roll and feel. I learned so much with feeling my opponent. You know, feeling my training partner. You know what I mean? Feel his moves against me. You know what I mean? It would be a blast. You know.
Yeah, it'd be a blessing to watch that. As a fan of jiu-jitsu, as somebody that likes to study and analyze, I'd be so fascinated to see that. And I always say to this day that one of the greatest things that somebody could try to put together that no one has really done is get somebody like Hickson, get somebody with that regarded as one of the greatest of all time, and somebody like you or a Rafa Mendez or Buchecha, and put them on the mat together to analyze technique and just not necessarily roll, but exchange technique. Because I feel like there's certain things that you guys say the same, certain things that are going to be different, but whatever you guys agree upon is going to be concrete, is going to be something that no one can dispute. So as a fan of jiu-jitsu, I want to be able to see something like that one day. And hopefully, from what I heard, Hickson's rolling again. So maybe you'll get your wish one day, Marcelo, once everything gets better. But listen, I know we've kind of gone a little bit over time. Marcelo Garcia, I can't thank you so much for the time that you gave us today. I learned a lot. As always, every time I chat with you, I got to learn a little bit more than just technique, and hear your stories and hear your career. And it's been such a huge pleasure for me to know you as a competitor and as somebody I consider a friend, and seeing your story from all the way back in 2003 to today and everything that you've gone through. You're an amazing inspiration and role model for jiu-jitsu. So I just want to say, on the behalf of FloGrappling and the jiu-jitsu community and myself, thank you for doing what you've done, continuing to be the humble, goat that you are, that everyone considers you the people's goat, the people's champion of jiu-jitsu. So thank you, Marcelo, for being you.
Thank you, Baleia. I'll apologize also for my honest, guys. Sometimes like people just don't like to hear honest, but I'm just trying to be honest about like everything that I feel, everything that I think, because I feel like the best day we can be just honest, even sometimes people like or not. But I feel like there's things that people can learn from my mistakes too. So that's why I like to be honest with all my feelings, all the situations that I ever fell in the mat or before or after, you know what I mean? Because we don't have to make the same mistake than other people. We can just learn from other people's mistake. That would be the best thing. And if something that people can learn from me is like you don't have to do the same mistake that I make. you can still do the things that works out for me. I just feel like when you're honest, I feel there's more chance to people just learn the best out of us, you know what I mean? So I really appreciate this time. And Bale, this time when we're able to talk jiu-jitsu and bring up like some old memories, it really like really makes me happy. So I'm really appreciating this time. You know, even we know when you're a father, when you're a family guy, you know you have a lot of things to do at home. But that time when we're able to have that time for ourselves is very important too. I really appreciated this time over here.
Thank you so much, Marcelo. And I appreciate you, like I said. And, guys, if you're watching at home worldwide, I appreciate you following along and listening to Marcelo. If you're a Marcelo Garcia fan, I'm pretty sure you appreciated every word that he had to say. Once again, one of the most humblest guys in the sport, Marcelo Garcia. That's about all the time I have for this week, everyone. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Thank you so much once again, Marcelo Garcia. And, guys, let me know who you want to see on the next Balea's Breakdown. We'll play some matches. We'll tell stories. We'll learn some jiu-jitsu. And just let me know who you guys want to hear and learn from. And I'll see you guys next time on Balea's Breakdown. Take care, guys.
So exciting.